morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming and availing yourselves of a bit of entertainment, we hope, here at the School of Geography, Archaeology and Paleoecology. My name is Alistair Ruffle. I'm the Director of Education here. I've got three of my colleagues who are specialists in each of their subject areas who will give you 10 minutes apiece on those exact things. The running order for today is roughly this, 10 minutes apiece, so it's all pretty short and sharp. And then there's two tours. This school is split over two buildings which share facilities, so there's material in each building which are used by all the courses that will run through, be they archaeology, paleoecology, joint honours with languages or geography or whatever. So if you don't miss out, then you can go on one tour and then come back to us for the other, or vice versa. We'll outline those for you a bit later. I'm not going to talk too much about the subject-specific areas. That's for my colleagues to do so. I'm going to tell you a bit about Queen's, very short, because I'm sure a lot of it you know already. But in case you don't, some of the reasons you might be looking to come and study here at Queen's are these sorts of things, that we are what's known as a traditional university. So we're in what's called this elite group, the Russell group, who include many of the universities you have heard of, such as Bristol, Oxford, Cambridge, Edinburgh, Manchester, Liverpool. 1845 founded, so quite 150 years old. Universities are really judged by the government, at least by their research. But that in Queen's is extremely important, and we're going through one of these exercises at the moment. But we equally realise that we have to be excellent at teaching as well, because of where we are and the competition from another certain university close to home. And with that in mind, we are equally excellent. Queen's itself and this school has been awarded national awards in teaching fellowship, and the investment in you as students is really quite great. If you want an example of that, you'll sit in Year 1, the newly furbished lecture theatre, and if you want to go, or you haven't seen the new library, 4 years old now, the other side of the quad in the Play Library, please do so. And likewise, although we're good and Russell Group, we can't rest on our laurels, we have to get you employment or further study at the end of all this. And it's tough out there, it's a tough economic climate, hopefully it's coming to an end, but you don't know. So you can't just walk out of Queen's or Oxford or Cambridge with a 2-1 in geography or archaeology and expect to get a job. You have to work hard for it. We work hard for you for it as well. So we put things on which are vocational, entrepreneurial, that will hopefully get you a job or a master's or a PGCE course. And then of course it's not just about study, it's about the Queen's experience as well. So in the school, these are some of the reasons we are deemed excellent in terms of research, and this rolls into what you will study. A lot of our teaching is research-led. And these are just a few. These are some of the ones that have been flagged up by our committees this year around as top research: conflict resolution, and historical archaeology, labour markets, geoforensics, a bit more about that. Environmental change is a broad area. And my colleagues will show you in a moment, it's a flexible programme. It will be unusual for you to see the way the programme works. There's bits of it are a little like you were used to with higher education with A-levels or leaving certs. Other areas are different. And we're very keen on student support, as also you'll see with tutors and small groups. As I outlined at the beginning, there are a number of different degree programs which this school manages. And that's by combining modules and by using modules from elsewhere in the university, but with a core set from this school. So the people in this room will variably be interested in archaeology, archaeology and paleoecology. My colleague Dr. Plunkett will explain to you in a moment what paleoecology is. I was most gratified to learn yesterday, thanks for that. One of the two programs which is based around joint honours with a language, extended studies, or with a language in archaeology, and the MSci in archaeology, a 4-year program like the languages. If you're interested in these sorts of things, and again, these are just examples, I hate slides with loads of text on, then you will be interested in coming and studying here. We want you to be motivated to want to get up in the morning and come and study with us on your own. That's the other important thing about working at university. Things like climate change, environmental degradation, cultural change, past and present. Have a passion for the world, be it past, geological, archaeological, historical, the present, all of them, and even the future. And then that thing I mentioned right at the beginning, giving you some skills to put on your CV, which you've gained while you've been studying these things, which will be employability skills, things that will get you a job, or skills you use in your further education. Yeah? So writing, presenting, handling data, being critical of ideas and issues, and thus, hopefully, getting a job at the end of all this. It's a little different to school, how things are arranged. We are arranged in 2 semesters, one starting imminently from late September, but ending in late January with exams, so crossing the Christmas period. And the second semester beginning in February and ending in May, also with exams. So it's not like 3 terms, it's 2 semesters with 3 modules, usually, dominantly, per semester. 3 and 3 makes 6 at the end of year 1, 6 and 6 makes 12 at the end of year 2, 18 at the end of year 3, and you get your degree. So modules are the key chunks to your degree program. And those are the things which my colleagues will be going through in a moment. The current entry grades, the thing you all want to know about, is grades and money. We can't help you much with money, except maybe lend you a fiver. Are the grades. Currently they're BBB. Some of you in the room are imminently in the process of getting your applications together, and that will be the grades we're looking for. Please keep watching the websites because they change, and they inevitably go up. So if you're GCSE at the moment, then in 2 to 3 years' time, this could well have changed. So don't hold this BBB to me right here and right now. But that's the current situation. And if you're interested in one of the programs in archaeology with a language or geography in Europe, then the appropriate language A-level is needed. Okay. Yes is the answer. You can go off at the end of year 1, at the end of year 2, and you inevitably go down to the end of year 3 because you would have finished. We don't really handle that. That's the admissions office. What we do handle is a more structured gap year, and that's if you wish to study abroad. Either in terms of the Erasmus scheme, which is the European Union funding scheme, to go to one of our partner universities, which are listed up there, which you do not need a language to do this, they teach you in English. Or one of the other mechanisms for studying or taking a year abroad or using a year abroad in your degree. They both operate. One of the common ones is what used to be Business Education Initiative, now Study USA, which students from this school are very successful at obtaining. I don't know why, but they are. I think I heard yesterday we have more than 6, even more than that, away this year. And 15 incoming Erasmus and about the same outgoing Erasmus. So it's really taking off in terms of students going away for the year. So you can look into all of that. You can just Google Study USA. There's all the things that you'll see on your tour or tours after this, the rooms we work in this building, the Mount Library, the laboratories in both buildings, including Chrono, the radiocarbon dating facility, Centre for Archaeological Fieldwork, Geographic Information Systems, and Centre for Digitisation. I love acronyms, as you can see. Lots of computing facilities, the office. You get involved. You will be asked to sit on school committees and tell us how you want this place run. We might take it on board. We won't just ignore you, but at least you've got the chance to tell us. And come to research-based things like seminars. And we make a lot of information available for you electronically and on paper in the main library. I'm not going to talk much at all about accommodation. I know it's the third thing you all are very interested in coming, and I know you've all got lots of information already. I leave it in there in case there's any questions about Queen's Elms, private accommodation, and all the rest of it. So we'll skip over those because most of you will know about it if you don't ask or get that information. The other thing you're interested in, which I've sort of mentioned earlier, is some of the things that students from here go on to do. A lot of them go on to do other courses, masters, PGCE teaching, and PhDs. All these sorts of direct or indirect employment opportunities in archaeological fieldwork, environment agencies, non-governmental organisations, civil service, the various charities, the National Trust, the Austin Wildlife Trust. Those sorts of places, tourism, are common destinations for our graduates to go. As I say, sometimes directly, sometimes after masters, sometimes after PhDs. And others branch out completely. A geography, an archaeology degree, a degree with a language, equip you for all sorts of other things as well. And we find our students going off and earning vastly more sums than any of us, probably with the exception of the professors in the room, that are slowly lecturing academics into administration and management and all these sorts of areas. Because you can write well and speak well, and use data and use computers, etc. All the things that graduates want out of a graduate from Queen's or indeed top-flight universities like we are. I have no idea how long that took me or short that took me. Oh, 2 minutes over. I apologise. I'll hand over to my colleague, Professor Royal, to tell you a bit about the geography programme, although that includes a lot of elements which archaeology students will take as well, and vice versa with my other colleagues. Steve?
Thank you, Alistair. I've just been tutoring on what's called the Postgraduate Certificate of Higher Education and Training, which new lecturers have to do. I was tutoring a mechanical engineer and an electronical engineer. And they were giving little lectures and I was talking about them. And they were quite enthusiastic about building aircraft wings, which was quite interesting. Then we were building circuits, doing diagrams of circuits. They said, they were enthusiastic, and they said, do you infuse? And I said, look, you can infuse over little pokey circuits or aircraft wings. I've got the world to infuse. Geography is one of the most broad subjects you could come across. We have the world in our hands, not in our pockets, it's too big, but in our hands. And what do we do with you in your 3 years, or perhaps 4 years if you do one of those European, USA type courses as well? In the first year, we think we know best to some extent, and we give you 4 compulsory courses, which I'll go through briefly. You see them. 2 of them on the screen there. And 2 elective modules. You have to do 6 courses, 6 modules per year, as Al said. And the 2 elective modules, we would like them to be in a related subject, especially we would like them to be in the other subjects in the school. It helps us, helps you, we think, if we have all 6 of your first year modules within the School of Geography, Archaeology and Paleoecology. But that's not obligatory. If you want to do something else, you can do something else, as long as it's a related subject, such as anthropology or something like that. People quite often do. So there's some choice there. The 4 compulsory modules, 2 in the first semester, 2 in the second semester, and we have, in both cases, a physical type module and a human type module. Principles and processes of physical geography, integrated evaluation of the physical environment, the world, the global scales there, also local and regional scale. It's a bit like school, only not. You know? Don't bring your school textbooks with you and expect just to go through them again. It's not like that. It's not like people who are researching, working, leading experts in their field. It's different.
From school, it has to be different. Human geography is a modern world. How human geography contributes to historical and contemporary societies. And a few photographs there. The world itself, trams, balloons. Should we study hot air balloons? So we'll study that landscape beneath the hot air. Second semester, dynamic Earth. That's what Al does himself. Plate tectonics, the shaping of the Earth's crust. How did the Earth get to be quite how it is? The diagram there, plate tectonics. And we do a development module because we think that's important, not just to think about the world, the Western world in which we live, but think about the other parts of the world. So a comparative perspective of development across different epochs, world regions, and policies, and not just in the third world, but also what's happening in the developed world. That's a lovely, fascinating picture there. The ruins of Detroit. Why did Detroit collapse in the way it has? What's going on there? So that's the sort of thing we do with you in the first year. I'm not going to go through every module you can do. These are examples of modules in the second year, level 2. Geographical inquiry, economic restructuring and social change. In year 2, we take you away from the university. If you want to go, you're not forced to go on field trips anymore, but we would encourage you to do so. We've got climate change, GIS, second semester. There's a module there called Geographical Research and Personal Development, which gets you into thinking about how you're going to do your dissertation. If you stay with geography into the third year, you have to do a dissertation, a study, 8,000 words, research you carry out yourself. This helps you get started in that. Personal development looks at the way in which you need to develop your skills in terms of presenting yourself. We look at curriculum detail, we look at interview techniques, things like that. A new course, Maps and Mapping from the Stone Age to the Digital Age, done by Keith Lilly. Environmental change, and of course, on geomorphology. Those are examples of the list is large. Optional, field-based modules. Optional because of the cost. It used to be they weren't optional. Now they are optional. It used to be we paid for you to go. Now we contribute quite to a large extent, but you will be 100, 200, no more like 300, 400 pounds. Don't go much out of pocket. It's always to the Mediterranean because we take you on holiday flights or EasyJet flights. I'm involved in the Malta module, Heritage, Culture and Land Use. I'm just at the moment with the university's travel agent booking the seats on EasyJet to go to Malta next April, beginning as quickly as possible. And put you in a hotel and have a good time. If you bump into students years later, shopping in town, you'll see an older student, they come and say, oh, you won't remember me especially, but you'll remember we were the group who did something, usually something bad, in New York or Malta or Cyprus is another place which we go. So some of these courses are more focused on human geography, the Malta one perhaps at the moment, they change. Excuse me, some are more focused on environmental type geography. So the bottom one there in Mallorca. And people have a nice time. I took that photograph at the bottom, that was in Mallorca, and the girl on the left in the purple is within 5 minutes of seriously damaging her ankle when she fell over. So the happiness lasted another 5 minutes. So the field-based modules, it brought to life the preparation lectures and applied physical human elements. It says a recent Queen's graduate, I don't want to name them, students interacting with a karst landscape. I'm sure we should be wearing hard hats. It's quite a dangerous landscape. Environmental and cultural change in Mallorca. Students do love the field trips. In the third year, you begin special. Well, you are specialised in the third year. Third year modules are research-led. You're given the talks, the lectures, of course, by people who are often using their own research as examples. Nice to say how important research is to us, and this shows in the teaching, especially at third year, also in the other year, but especially at third year. And there's a range of modules in third year. There's a wide choice which can be done. Not all available every year. It depends on staff availability. We don't always teach them every year. And global finance, urban development, society, death and disease. That's a cheery one. Geoforensics, that's full of bugs eating bodies. Al does that. So, geomorphology, sea level change, GIS. Geography at Work's an interesting one. It's a placement one where you go out and work for an organisation outside. And that gives you transferable skills, which is very useful. So, by the time you get to third year, you're choosing. If you want to say you want to be a geography teacher, you might choose some physical modules, you might choose some human modules, give you a broad balance. If you know what you want to do, I want to go and work for the Environment Agency, you choose physical geography modules. It's up to you to a large extent. You also have to do the dissertation. If you're going to be an environmental geographer, then you choose to do a dissertation in the environmental field. So we have, here's my world. Examples of modules available here include arid environments. So there's the Sahara sand sea, Balkans and so on, dust storm in Algeria. And to counterbalance that, the geography of finance module, there's a bloke in the middle about to have a nervous breakdown because it must be 2008 and it's all going wrong. And making a living in the city. So we have a broad range, geography is a broad ranging subject, it's an interesting subject. If you're interested in the world, geography is one of the things you can do. Come and do it. That's me done. Thank you very much.
Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope I get applause at the end. I'll do my best. I think I'll probably should start with the basics, which is simply what is archaeology. You'll all be familiar with it to some extent from television programs, but you don't get to study it at school, very rarely. So hopefully in the next few minutes actually I'll convince some of you who are keen on geography that while you do your geography degree to step across to the other building and explore archaeology as well, or maybe even start off in archaeology. Fundamentally, archaeology is a study of past peoples and their cultures, primarily but not entirely through material remains. We use any sources at our hands. If we're working in historic periods, we're using historical documents. We're using environmental sources, which my colleague Dr. Plunkett will talk to you about in a bit. And we also look at it with the entire range of human existence on the planet. So you will be learning about early hominid evolution, as well as looking at the archaeology of the Great War, for example, or even the archaeology of our contemporary world. So it's that wide span, and we take a global approach to archaeology. And the other thing that is really key to our teaching and our research here, to the classes you would take, is thinking about why archaeology actually matters in the present. It can be easy to see archaeology as something sort of esoteric, but if you think about it, archaeology at a pragmatic level is key to the economy. It's key to tourism, to heritage, okay, to conservation at that level. But it also gives us a way of understanding and approaching problems in the present. What did people do in the past when they were faced with this situation? It's also central to our own identities. We are who we are, we think anyway, because of what we know about the past, where we came from. So it is actually important, and it's actually important to politics as well. So that's the basics. If you come to study archaeology, you will be getting a really nice blend of scientific learning and humanities approaches. We really blend the two together. And the other things that the archaeology degree does, just as geography does, is to get you out in the field, doing hands-on work, get you in the laboratory, learning about analyzing pottery or lithics, stone tools, environmental evidence. So you get that side of things, you develop those skills. Outside, you will learn how to excavate, which requires you to work as part of a team. These are all really good life skills. So it's not a vocational degree that you can only be an archaeologist when you come out. It prepares you for all the range of careers that Dr. Ruffins already mentioned to you. And of course, it is a university degree. You will spend a lot of time in the library. You will also look at archival collections. You might look at museum collections as well. So the full range of sources. You won't get bored. I'll just now go through some of the modules that you would be able to take. Some of these are core or compulsory modules, others are optional. So the same structure that Professor Royal has presented to you. In the first year, in the first semester, there are two compulsory modules, one of which is Introduction to World Archaeology, where we effectively expand expand your mind extensively by the diversity of human cultures around the world, again from the origins, hominid evolution, up to the present. And we'll go to places like Egypt and China, and we'll visit South America. This is all, of course, metaphorical through textbooks and lectures and discussions. But we'll look at the Inca and the Aztecs. We'll look at ancient Rome. We'll look at the full range, just so you get a sense of the breadth and the excitement of the discipline. And we'll combine that with hands-on sessions of how to actually handle material culture, handle artifacts, understand them. How do you actually record a site in the field, record a building, record soils? How do we understand this evidence? The other compulsory module is Cave Arts to Celts, which is looking at prehistoric Europe in particular. And that as well combines field activities with classroom learning. So there is a very enjoyable field trip to the sites in the Boyne Valley, Newgrange, for example, associated with that. We have a new module that's optional, but you might quite like to take it, called Mummies, Animals, and Gods. And with a title like that, how could you not sign up for it? Looking at human and animal remains, how we interpret those in relation to past cultures, what are relationships with ritual and belief, for example. Second semester, we pick up from prehistoric Europe with barbarians, Vikings, and traders, looking at societies and cultures and cultural change in Europe up to and through the medieval period, again with field trips and small group learning alongside lectures. Other optional modules you can choose then, one of which we strongly encourage is environmental change, past, present, and future, which Dr. Plunkett will talk a bit more about in a few minutes, so I won't steal her thunder on that. Moving into the second year, or actually before you get into the second year, in the summer between the two, you have the option, which is we very strongly encourage you to do this, to take the excavations module. So you will actually be participating on an archaeological excavation, and this will take several weeks and will be assessed. But it gets you out there learning how to hold a trowel, how to sift soils, how to recognize things, how to record things, and that will take place on a site in Northern Ireland. We have a very good relationship with the Environment Agency, and we work on sites in concert with their archaeological staff. So we've excavated at Dunluce with students, Dundrum Castle, Strew Wells, all in the last few years. Coming back into the classroom in the autumn, you can specialize in a module on Ireland and prehistory, Flint's, Farmers and Forts, again with the field trip component, or you can sign up to an optional field module, which actually takes place in Rome. You'll go out there for a week-long intensive series of visits to sites, and again, small group learning, preparation beforehand and afterwards, but a fantastic opportunity to really engage with another place and different types of sites. In the second semester, we look at, in one of the compulsory modules, thinking through things, exactly how do archaeologists frame questions about the past? How do we decide, for example, what might be the most important factor in why something changed in a culture or society? Is it just the environment? Is it ideological and religious beliefs? What are those triggers? It's all founded on different theories and philosophies that you need to understand and get to grips with. And that will help you preparing for the third year when some of you may choose to do a dissertation, independent research. The next module is St. Patrick to the Plantation, picking up from the Prehistoric Ireland module and moving and taking you through Irish archaeology up to and through the plantation period. Other options you might like would be one from geography, maps and mapping from the Stone Age to the Digital Age. In your third year, if your marks are at a 2-1 level or above, you will have the opportunity to do a piece of independent research as your dissertation, and also select from a range of specialized modules. So just as was explained for third year geography, these are very much focused modules usually related to an independent member of staff's research area. So it really gives you a good chance to get into the meat of a topic and develop your own expertise. The chronology of dating the past, monuments and ritual, human evolution, osteoarchaeology, colonialism, capitalism, conflict, which is looking at the archaeology of the modern world, and again, the old favorite, society, death, and disease. I think I shall stop there. Actually, one last point. You can also have the opportunity to sign up for a 4-year master's degree from the start. And that allows you, you will come out at the end with a Master's of Science in Archaeology, and it allows you to continue your funding strands or your loans, so it would be something you might care to think about in the course. I'll turn it over to Dr. Clark.
And then to tell you what this mysterious thing called paleoecology is, which actually, believe it or not, as a geographer, actually I'm a geologist, but working in teaching mainly geography, paleoecology is basically what I do, which is great fun. So Jill, if you didn't mind, Hugh?
I'm one of a small number of staff who actually call themselves an archaeologist or a paleoecologist, but invariably I'm talking to a member of the public, and they say, oh, what do you do? Oh, I teach at Queen's. What do you teach? I hesitate and I say archaeology, because it's much easier to explain to you. It's quicker, shortcut. But hands up, anybody who has heard of paleoecology? Apart from this staff. Okay. Small number of them. Okay, it's not complicated. If you want to do a degree in archaeology and paleoecology, you can do effectively pretty much what Professor Warner has already described, so it encompasses that, but it's also got this added on paleoecology. Quite simply, paleoecology is the study of past environments. So it's ecology of the past. It's looking at plants, animals that existed in the past up to the present day, and the environments that they inhabited, and how these environments changed, the impact it had on the plants, on the animals, etc., and also on the landscapes. So paleoecologists come from a wide range of disciplines. These can include geologists, archaeologists, botanists, zoologists, and we study things like animal bones to try and find out what animal populations lived in the past, extinct animals or animals that we live with today, including domesticates. When did people start domesticating animals? We look at plants, how plants change. We can either look at microscopic remains that we need a microscope to look at, such as pollen grains shown in the centre here. And we also look at things like seeds, wood remains, and this can tell us about the vegetation that existed in the past. And we use this information to build up a picture of what the landscape was like. We can look at how the landscape was at a particular point in time, or perhaps more importantly, we can look at how it changed over time, and what caused these changes. Was it climate? Was it catastrophes, volcanic eruptions, or were humans changing the environment? And when the environment changed, what impact did it have on the ecosystems, the plants, the animals, the societies that were around in those, at those particular points in time? So I could actually add what Professor Boyd said about having the world in your hands, studying geography. With archaeology and paleoecology, you have the world in your hands, and you have it into the past as well. So you've got 40 minutes. Possibly one of the most important aspects of paleoecology, why it is particularly relevant, is because we can use the information to study climate change in the past. Does anybody recognise this graph? I'm amazed this isn't taught at school. This is a graph known as the hockey stick graph. It was published in 1998, and what it represents as a record of climate change over the past 1,000 years. Now, we only have instrumental records, actual measurements of climate change, going back about 150 years. And the information we have from those instruments is represented by the red line here. And it clearly shows that temperatures have been increasing over the last couple of centuries. But to understand whether this is significant, whether it is because of the changes that have taken place since the Industrial Revolution, or whether it is actually just a normal part of climate variability, where the climate generally does this increase in temperatures followed by a decrease, followed by an increase, we have to be able to put it into a longer term context. And to do that, we need to turn to paleoecological records. So we can gather information from tree rings, from stalagmites in caves, from ocean sediments, from ice cores, from bogs and lakes, and we can use the information from the plant remains, from the animal remains, from the chemical remains, to build up a picture of what the climate was like in the past. And that's what the blue line represents, a reconstruction of the climate going back over 1,000 years. And on the basis of this graph, you can see that the recent climate change in the past 2 centuries is, in fact unusual. It is extremely different to what has been recorded over the last 1,000 years. Now, we're not restricted to looking at the last 1,000 years. We can go back millennia, we can go back hundreds of thousands of years, and understand what the processes behind climate change are. Furthermore, in terms of archaeological research questions, we can try to understand how such changes impact on human populations. To what extent does climate change or environmental change alter how people interact with their environment and interact with each other? So it is a critical part of understanding past human activity, and it is also extremely relevant to geography, because we're incorporating some of the same research that geographers do, physical geographers do today. As I said, paleoecology is a natural companion to go with archaeology, and this is just an image from a research project that I was involved with some other researchers here in Queen's, which was an interdisciplinary study of the location where a bug body, a 2,000-year-old body that had been buried in a bog in County Offaly, had been. So we've got specialist archaeologists working along with paleoecologists to try to understand why this body was put into the bog at a particular point in time that he was buried. This body was not put in accidentally. He didn't fall over and drown in a bog pool. His head had been cut off. He'd been cut at the torso. Holes had been put into each of his arms, and ropes had been put through, and he had been pinned down into the body. Somebody did not like this man. You can see these remains in the National Museum in Dublin, and one of the trips, as archaeologists, one of the trips you'd be doing would be to go to Dublin and you can see these remains. So as paleoecologists, we reconstructed what the landscape was like at the time of this death. What were people doing in the wider area? Was it inhabited? Was it being farmed? And effectively when, we also were part of the dating program, we found out when he was buried in the bog. So in studying archaeology and paleoecology, you get to do the archaeology subjects, but we also expect you to do a certain number of paleoecology subjects. So in first year, the modules that you have to do, the requisite modules, are slightly different and will have a slightly more scientific slant. And that will follow through the rest of your course. We would expect you to take a certain number of slightly more scientific topics. It's not heavy science by any means. You don't have to have a strong science background to do this. It helps, of course, if you understand science, but it's not essential. And you'll see that the two areas complement each other greatly. So all students, regardless of what pathway you're on, if you're doing archaeology as a single honours or archaeology paleoecology or archaeology combined with another subject, you have to do Introduction to World Archaeology, which is Professor Warren has explained. We give you a great taster for the types of research questions we can ask, types of ways we can look at human activity in the past. We'd also ask you to do Mummies, Animals and Gods, which again would show you how by scientific analysis of animal remains, human remains, we can understand how people behaved in the past. And try to understand things like diet, what animals they were eating, how healthy the individuals were, looking at human remains. And this is an example of the teeth of this skeleton. I can't remember what particular disease this individual had, but it was severe and would have caused a lot of pain during the individual's life. So you get to see some scientific analysis of animal and human remains. And then you can also choose modules such as Arctic accounts. In the second semester, you'll do environmental change, which is paleoecology, past, present, and future. And in here, you get a taster for the types of different research we do in paleoecology, from where we go to find evidence of past environments, the types of evidence we look for, how we interpret it, and follow up through a number of different events from huge eruptions and how they impacted on human evolution, human populations, up to human impact on the environment in recent times. And in this module, there'll be a certain number of practicals, so you get to experience how we analyse data in the past. For example, how we can go from looking at pollen grains from each type of plant produces a pollen grain that has a different shape or form, and we can recognise those and reconstruct what pollen grains were present in a sample. And from building up pictures of what grains are represented, we can decide whether a landscape was forested in the past, and if so, what types of trees were there. To when people start cutting down trees and making pastures or growing cereals. So we can use pollen analysis to look at questions such as this. And you can do dynamic earth, of course, which is a natural complement. This is the old presentation. Just realizing. We can you look at paleoecology in any parts of the world. So our researchers have gone out to lakes in different parts of the world, mangroves. This is me, I was a PhD student, Coring Lake in Turkey. To looking at volcanic ash, that's another area of research we do, and something that will be part of the teaching. Looking at volcanic ash and the impacts of volcanoes on the environment. And here we have one of our students, our undergraduate students, carrying out work for his dissertation, his level 3 dissertation, where he looked at ancient open pine remains in bogs in Northern Ireland. And he used the information he got from these to identify an event, a climate event, climate change, dated to 8,200 years ago, which is recognised as a major global climate change at the time. So his research, the work he did for his dissertation, is currently about to be submitted for publication because it was real, genuine research and it doesn't make a difference. In level 2, then, you have a range of modules, pretty much the modules that are on offer to our archaeology students, but also a number of scientific modules, including those that are on offer to geography students. So there is a natural overlap between the areas. And these include Mediterranean landscapes, climate change and geographical information systems, where you get to look at modern climate change. And understanding modern climate change is part and parcel of understanding past climate change. In level 2, there is a new module called Rapid Environmental Change, which has been introduced to give students a clearer focus on the types of analytical research we do in paleoecological research. And we've introduced this because students have actually asked if they could get more skills in analysing the data. So this will be the first year that's running. In level 3, there's a number of modules on offer. Again, we would expect you to do something like data in the past. Queen's excels in Queen's Archaeology Paleoecology excels in techniques it offers. We have one of the earliest radiocarbon labs that is internationally renowned. We've also got one of the earliest dendrochronological labs. We analyse pine and oak that are preserved in Irish bogs. And we can use this information not just to date timbers and archaeological sites, but also to look at past climate change. And we've also, for the past 20 years, been looking at volcanic ash, and these are particles of volcanic ash. You may remember in 2010, in the spring of 2010, there was a moderate eruption in southern Iceland that dispersed ash across Europe and caused aircraft to be grounded for weeks. So it caused a huge amount of travel disruption, economic disruption. Well, that was not an unusual event, because we've been looking at this. We know these events happen periodically, that ash from volcanoes, not just from Iceland, but also from Alaska, can get blown across Europe. And we've been analysing these and learning about the types of research we do in the course. Quaternary paleoecology will give you a taster of major areas of interest in paleoecology, looking at sea level change in the past, its impact to human evolution, to changes in species over time. Osteoarchaeology will give you a taste for the research on bones. And then you can also choose things like sea level change, past, present, and future, or Dr. Ruffles' course, geoforensics, which is extremely popular with archaeology and paleoecology students. Okay, I'll finish on that. Above all, we want you to enjoy the course. So we think between the field trips that you'll be offered and the different types of teaching that you'll experience, the more cerebral learning from books, but also the hands-on